I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heather, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Here.
Mayor Beaton.
Here.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Here.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Here.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Planning and Zoning.
Here.
Police Chief.
Here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Public comments. Public hearing we're going to have a public hearing to discuss the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund Development Grant for improvements to the Veterans Memorial Park North Riverwalk. The purpose of this hearing is to seek community input regarding the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application that was prepared by the city for improvements to Veterans Memorial Park North Riverwalk. The city clerk has completed the required notices of the public hearing, and the public will be provided an opportunity to comment. No action is anticipated at the conclusion of the public hearing. However, this matter is on the agenda for consideration later on in this meeting. We will now take public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund Development Grant. Citizens in attendance will be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters to the council will not be publicly read. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Seeing that there are no comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Moving on. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on agenda-related items only. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to the council will not be publicly read. Do we have any public that would like to come forward to comment on the agenda? Seeing none, consent agenda. All agenda items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, notification of the next study session, consideration of the 2022 Catamaran Racing Association of Michigan, CRAM, to hold its annual Manistee Regatta on August 12th through the 14th, 2022. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business, so we're going to move on to new business, but we're going to change the order in which we do it. We are going to put item D, which is the consideration of approving the 2022 Jocelyn Cove Development and Reimbursement Agreement as the first one. So that will be item A, and then the rest will follow in logical order after that. So at this time, A will be consideration of approving the 2022 Jocelyn Cove Development and Reimbursement Agreement. At their February 24, 2022 meeting, the Manistee County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, MCBRA, voted to approve an amended and restated development and reimbursement agreement with Manistee Lakes, LLC on the Jocelyn Cove development. The City of Manistee is a party to the agreement, as they are receiving payment in the amount of $150,000 through the agreement. $100,000 is remaining for the setting and construction of the Arthur Street Pump Station. At this time, council could take action to approve the amended and restated development and reimbursement agreement between the Manistee County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, City of Manistee, and Manistee Lakes LLC for the Jocelyn Cove project. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Discussion?
I just had one question. The Arthur Street Pump Station currently is in the parking lot by the boat launch. That's just being moved physically and abandoned that one and moved to another location? Is that what this says?
It is not being moved. We actually did the work a couple years ago to rehabilitate that and add a metering pit to it. So the work at that station has already been completed.
Is that the work that's mentioned in this particular, we're getting reimbursed for?
Answer that.
So they've started doing more work on the Jocelyn Cove, so this redevelopment agreement allows us to get reimbursed for that infrastructure that we installed back, was it 15, 20 years ago, Mike? Or?
Yeah, so they, within the, I'm sorry. Yes, within the agreement, the original agreement was from 2006, it's been amended quite a few times. And this would allow for reimbursement for the city for their amount of money that they put towards that pump storage project, which was $150,000. It would allow them to be reimbursed for that. They actually are second on the reimbursement list, right after the county's administration costs. So,
I'm sorry, how much is the county administration cost?
I believe it's only $1,000 per year.
Oh, okay.
Is that right, Matt?
So the sitting and the construction's all done?
What's that?
The siting and the construction of that pump station is done?
It's already been, it's
Yeah.
already happened. Right, the way I understand it, approval of this agreement then allows for capture and repayment of the expenditures we have already done on that project.
Right, that's correct. And if it's not extended, there is no funds to reimburse the city. So it would benefit the city to do so.
Thank you.
I don't know who could answer this question. I'm going to guess it's going to be Mr. Bradford. How long will it take them to reimburse the city?
I don't have the TIF tables in front of me, but we should be able to get paid back within 2 or 3 years, depending on how the tax revenues come in and the properties get billed out. Is that pretty? Yeah, 2 years, Mac is saying. So we've already gotten 50,000 of the 150 under the previous agreement, so 2 more years we should be paid off.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions on council?
I'd like to briefly hear from the Manistee Lakes LLC on exactly what they plan on doing to continue the development of the project, exactly what, how many more units, and just give us a little idea of what is in the future.
Thank you for having me. My name is Todd Harding, and I am the owner's representative for Manistee Lakes, and that's by a contractual agreement. The plan now, the previous developer has been removed, the previous developer and contractor has been removed from the project after only completing 2 units in the past 2.5 years. The project couldn't go on any further with him at the helm. We have since I've come into the picture in December, we've already completed 1 unit. The remaining 3 will be done by approximately May 15th. The next 2 buildings, which are the 2 to the north on the project, we were planning by approximately April 15th to start pouring cement for the slabs, and the first building is scheduled to be complete and framed by approximately September. The second building by the spring. That's why we're pouring all 16 units at the time. And then after that, there's another 6-unit building right next to the to the, I call it the ghost ship. I'm not sure what you guys call it, but that's what I call it, the ghost ship. And there's another 6 unit. That won't start until 2023 at the earliest. But the plan is to have, we've got 20 units remaining to be completed, 22 units remaining to be completed, and of the remaining project, and we plan on 8 to be done by the end of this year in their entirety, and then another 8 in the spring, and then the remaining within the 28-month period of the project. So,
I don't know if you can answer this question, but do you have a waiting list of people that want to buy them?
yes.
Okay. You don't need to.
Yeah, no, the waiting list, the interest that is being expressed, we've already turned down. The units that are remaining to be built right now, of the current 6 that are there, there's 4 of them, as I said. Those are all sold.
Okay.
The next building to the north of the current buildings, we just turned down 2 offers because we weren't prepared for the final costs of it yet. We wanted costs before we set a price, and the price was substantially higher than what we've received on any other building, so.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging, right?
Yes, it's very encouraging, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
We have no further questions. Roll call.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes,
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Motion approved.
thank you. Now we're ready for Origins Walk presentation by Brandon Jensen of Right Side Design Group.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Jensen. I'm the owner and creative director at the Right Side Design Group in Manistee. This is a project that we have been contracted to work with the Manistee Convention and Visitors Bureau with. It started back in probably about a year ago in February, January. The project originally began back in 2012. Manistee County Visitors Bureau had a historic sites walk. It was just a simple brochure with a listing of historic sites. That was then expanded into a larger magazine and resource guide. And then from there, a USDA rural business grant was applied for and won back in 2015 for a much larger project that included an entire video series and a more comprehensive overview of our historic sites. Fast forward to this past year, another grant was applied for through USDA, and the CVB was awarded that grant to continue the evolution of the project and the cultural tourism aspect of this, to include additional sites as well as physical signage and some interpretive signage as well as part of this project. So tonight I'm going to go through the Keystone Site, which is actually located at First Street Beach, Douglas Park, and I'll take you through the project. So this specific part of the project, there's actually 4 primary components. There's a historic sites guide, which is a comprehensive historic guidebook, which would not be possible without the very close working partnership that the CVB has with the Manistee County Museum and Mark Fetter, who's here tonight. Everyone knows Mark. Also tonight here as well as Tim Riley, board chair for the CVB. In addition to working with my team, the entire staff of the CVB have been integral as this entire project has evolved over the years, as well as Chris Van Wyk of Engine Creative down in Ludington. He's working specifically with me on the Origins Walk. And then Glenn Zering, he's been a really pivotal key to this, as well as a liaison to the CVB and the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, working to accurately convey all the information that I'm going to share here with you tonight. So the Origins Walk is a primary reason why I'm here. The site was selected back after the grant was awarded, so we actually did a walkthrough with city representation. Linda, I know you were there at that part of that meeting. And we ended up choosing the site that's down at First Street Beach, immediately off of the west end of the Riverwalk. So the new portion of the Riverwalk that was reconstructed from the high water damage, immediately following that is where the site is. In addition, just to quickly kind of summarize the project components here, the guidebook, which will be free for the public, it'll be produced using funds from the grant and the CVB. It'll be one of the largest collections of historic preservation information that honestly probably the state of Michigan has even seen. The Origins Walk, like I mentioned, the route signage, so there's going to be multiple self-guided tour routes that already exist. Those are getting expanded on for this next iteration of the project. And larger signage will be placed. The locations are still to be determined. That'll probably be one of the later portions of the project, but larger signage will be placed along the route, which will allow pedestrians to discover certain key specific sites and then realize that those sites are part of a larger self-guided tour. And then there'll be a comprehensive marketing public relations push following the project. I won't sit up here and read all of this to you, but the main position behind the Origins Walk is really to establish a physical location that celebrates the people that influenced the origins of our community while also depicting the evolution of our regional landscape. So it's sculpture and history combined into one. Here's a little bit more detailed view of the actual site that's been selected. As part of the grant, we actually had we worked with Jeff to just identify essentially the portion of the Riverwalk essentially from the where the reconstruction has recently been completed all the way to the Lions Pavilion. We weren't exactly sure how large this was going to be until we got into it a little bit more. But after walking up and down this site quite extensively over the last year, this is the selected area for the two key components to this project, which is the Origins Arc and the Origins Walk. The real position behind this is about education, it's about sculpture, and it's about enlightenment. So, when we applied for the grant, we really had no idea what this was going to turn into. All that we knew was that the feedback that we received from the original project, there were travelers and locals alike that wanted to know more about the people that a lot of these buildings in our region were either constructed by, or who was involved in the construction of this, were they influential, how were they influential. So that really came to the point of saying, okay, we have this guidebook that talks a lot about the buildings, but we don't really have anything that talks extensively about the people. So that's what this is designed to fill that cultural hole, if you will, in the project as a whole. The other piece is that when the Historic Sites Project was created originally, 8 years ago, there was never really a home for the project. There were routes, there were buildings, there were homes, there were commercial buildings, existing sites that existed that had prominent historic structures on them, once upon a time, but there was not really a home to the project. This site would serve as the home to the historic preservation and the Historic Site series, and also be a key pillar to cultural tourism story in Manistee County. The site selection, because of its natural, its natural landscape, plus the fact that it is wide open to the elements, you'll see that we did select Corten steel to be used as the primary sculptural component, which is frequently used in public art, primarily because of the patina that it has, and also because it is very durable to vandalism and other aspects of sculpture being in public elements. So again, there's two components, the Origins Walk and the Origins Arc. The Origins Walk talks about the people. So there'll be 20 people that will be featured along the walk. Each one of those people will have informational plaque about them. But the unique part about this is that they will be laid out in a repetition along this walkway. And the individuals will actually be cut out of, their silhouettes will be cut out of Corten steel. So as you walk along the pathway throughout various points of the day, the shadows cast along the ground will actually be something that is also sculptural, interesting, and a little bit more than just a plaque on a post. This is a sample of about the approximate size that you would expect to see. So each individual sculptural representation, again, will have that profile and silhouette, and then there will be a write-up on the individuals that are being featured there. So they could be featured in relation to their history in the region, why they were influential to the region. We tried to be extremely inclusive, not just focus on, the founders per se. It's all started about the idea of a founder's walk, but it really turned into more, especially with working with the museum and Mark and talking about who are the influential people in our community at various points of time prior to the 1900s. And this is designed to be inclusive of all the walks of life from that period of time.
Is there any mention of the indigenous people that?
Absolutely. So of the 20 placards that are selected, we worked really closely with Glenn and the Historic Preservation Department at the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and it was determined that there were going to be 3, not necessarily people, because in their heritage and society, they don't necessarily focus on one person, and instead they're focusing on water carriers, focusing on the traders in the region and the elders, and what they represent, the importance of their tribal culture. So they are the 3 tribal representation components of the 20 founders. And that was a really interesting project, working with Historic Preservation and Glenn, and they've seen this presentation. They're all very excited about it, seeing it coming together. Having input and involvement in their representation has been, I think, a really positive piece to just how this project has come about. A really large component of the tribal historic piece is actually in the elements component of this. So the elements date, this really goes back to glacial formation. So when we talk about water, we're going way back. So predating any of us sitting in this room now. So we talk about water, we talk about life, and then settlement, industry, and then sustainability. So those 5 key elements are ones that were identified at the project onset as being important components to showcase our sort of geological formation, why we're here, why this area is important. Water, from the standpoint of water, is critical to, not just our community, but many communities along the coast. And then life, dealing with, especially most notably the sturgeon, which you'll see represented here out of the large, cut metal piece. An extremely important symbol to the origin people here and why they settled here. And then expanded narrative about settlement and migration and how that was a key component and important to their history in the past. To more of the, quote, modern era, where you get into, white settlement and the Industrial Revolution, which is the lumber era, which brought so many people to our specific region, which is responsible then for a lot of the physical built structures that you see, which are featured inside of the guidebook. To the sustainability aspect of this, which really highlights as to the importance of water and what it represents today. As you can see, these are a much larger piece than the actual individual founders. So these are actually going to be ribboning or spiraling around that walkway. So if you've ever been on the site down there, when you come off of, First Street and Cherry, it's actually the curve really is creating a handicap accessible pitch to get down to the Riverwalk edge. So we're actually using that natural arc that's formed there to then radiate these sculptural elements and these informational plaques, which will give, direction here. This gives you a better view of what this will look like around that curve. So it's something that you can experience in working with DPW, understanding how important maintenance is and the idea that the site needs to be maintained. So using different very low maintenance plantings such as the dune grass, plus the restoration work that the city has put into the west end of the Riverwalk now, that dune grass tie between that and this really is complementary, creating a much more park-like space here. This is a view looking as if you just came off of the Riverwalk. This is perched up about 15 feet in the air, but this allows you to see as you kind of walk up and around that curve that is where that origins arc is, where there's a lot of different information, again, going back to that life sustainability, water, industry, and then sustainability or settlement. So you can enter from 2 different locations, off the Riverwalk, off the street, or actually through from the, just off of the boat ramp, where the street crosses. What you don't see rendered here, just because it was difficult to see everything when we're spinning this around in 3D, is that row of trees there. So the distance between those trees and the distance between the actual founders that are, or the origin influential people around that row of 20, there's a balance between all of those, so it's thought out and plotted out to, maximize through the exposure to the sun and just the experience that you would have on site, seeing it as sculpture and a park and a historic, monument placard piece. So it moves you through the space, but also is something interesting and engaging to look at. Picking up on, I mentioned this earlier, the natural elements, we really wanted just to make sure that we were featuring some of these natural components. It's important that we, have something that is maintainable. That was really important at the onset of this, and something that, we talked about a lot from just internally as a project team to ensure that, these things could take a beating and still withstand the test of time. And the panels that we're using that will actually display the informational pieces, they're a weather, it's a die bond panel that's printed on, and we're actually going to be printing multiples as part of this project, so if one gets broken, destroyed, something we have replacements to quickly swap out, so it won't be something that is just without information for a long duration of time. And that's it. Open the floor to any questions or comments, feedback. A little bit more, we did run this past the Parks Commission, had good dialogue there with Jeff, and just discussing various aspects of maintainability, the sense of place, and the fact that the Parks Commission has looked for these public art components as part of park beautification and some of those planning components. And also had a chance to sit down and talk to the city manager about this as well. Again, we talked about this with the CBB board level fairly extensively, which Tim can attest to. And really excited to bring this to you and share this with you. So it's a landmark project that the CBB is very excited about. The state really emphasizes cultural tourism as being a really key important component that is part of that Pure Michigan experience, and this is a project that we feel really leverages and showcases that.
What's your timeline and budget?
Right now, we're hoping to have these installed for the peak summer season. So the peak summer season.
Summer season? So they're already built someplace?
They are not built, but they are laid out and they can be cut pretty quick. Okay. So we've secured basically the manufacturer or the steel source, where we're getting it water jetted, and right now we're probably at about 3 weeks to turn that around. 3 to 4 weeks is what we're being told, once the artwork is finalized.
In your budget, where does that come from?
Budget's coming from the Convention Visitors Bureau and the USDA Rural Business Development Grant.
Thank you. It's a nice project.
Thank you.
Very nice, Brian.
Are these mounted in concrete? Are they driven into the ground? How are they mounted?
That's one thing that we will be working on. There's been a couple things. I've talked to Brandon Prince at the DPW about different situations of how to exactly extend the steel below grade to make sure that it is more vandal proof. We've talked about a couple things, either extending the steel directly down or creating almost like a fin or a wedge that can spread out, and then we've also talked about throwing a bag of concrete or two in each one. We've got budgets on both, and it all fits within the budget, so it's kind of a fine line between, if we need to replace it, how hard do we want to have it be to replace versus trying to make sure that it will obviously withstand the test of time down there. But be definitely working with Jeff and DPW kind of over the next month or so to try to come up with a game plan exactly as to what would be the best recommended application for that, because we're getting some different stories as well from steel manufacturers of what they think. Everyone's got a different opinion of how to mount them, but the general consensus is we want to make sure that they are definitely leaning towards the side of being more permanent to just prevent vandalism.
And what's the timeline on the tour guide?
Tour guide will also, the idea is to have the tour guide ready to go in conjunction with the ribbon cutting per se of this. Yeah, right now the tour guide and this component, along with the digital assets that would be housed on the Convention and Visitors Bureau's website at visitmanisteecounty.com, that would ideally be ready to go once this project is officially, kind of completed. And then the route signage will happen sometime shortly thereafter on the individual routes themselves.
Brandon, did you get the book from the tribes to get some ideas?
Yep. We got the book that the tribe had put together. We talked to Jay a couple different times about the project. Talked to Glenn extensively about the project to make sure that everything was represented appropriately. Inside the guidebook itself, it's a 3-part book or a 3-part tour book. The middle part is all the self-guided routes themselves. The front side is an entire history about just the origins themselves. So we're talking about tribal settlement to, basically tribal settlement to how we got to where we are today. And then a traveler can experience the routes themselves. And then the last part of the book, there's going to be an extensive feature on the tribal historic corridor that is inside the casino resort. So if you were in there, there's the piece that's kind of behind the hotel, desk there. There's going to be information about that Glenn's helping us pull together and has provided to us. There's also going to be additional information about where people can learn more information, especially the Manistee County Historical Museum downtown. Just considering the fact that this project was not, there's no way this could actually happen without Mark and all of his resources down there at the table.
Good.
Is there going to be any signage on 31 and other places directing people towards the beach and this particular Origins Walk?
Right now, no. There's nothing that's planned to be directing people here specifically. Really, the main meat of this project is building out these individual kind of site infrastructure components right now.
One more chance. Got any more questions? Well, that's a very nice presentation, and thank you. I think it's going to be beautiful. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jensen.
Thanks.
Moving on, consideration of a grant application to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for improvements to Veterans Memorial Park, North Riverwalk. The North Riverwalk has aged and deteriorated and requires substantial upgrades. Rehabilitation plans include replacing steps, walkways, retaining walls, and landscaping. Additional enhancements include utilization of maintenance-friendly materials, wells for stormwater treatment, lighting, and ADA accessibility improvements. The estimated project cost is $560,000. The city is applying for a $300,000 grant from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. Local match is required in the amount of $260,000. $123,000 was budgeted in the capital improvement bond. The additional local match may come from a Mingler Foundation grant and ARPA funds. At this time, council could take action to approve the resolution to apply for a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant in the amount of $300,000 for improvements to the Veterans Memorial Park, North Riverwalk, and commit matching funds in the amount of $260,000 in the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
That motion.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Gamble, would you like to tell us more about this grant?
Sure. The city applied for a DNR trust fund grant 2 years ago. Since then, our 5-year master plan has been updated. Now we're eligible to apply again. A couple elements. I mean, if you've been down to the North River Walk, it needs a lot of work. So this is the complete revamp of a lot of elements there, adding accessibility, more sustainable elements, such as native plantings. There's a lot of overgrowth, and we're adding some lighting and benches. So I think it's going to be a great grant if we can get it, revamp this Riverwalk. And kind of a bigger part is making sure all the wood gets replaced with either PVC, or we're also looking at some other options for more sustainable things other than the current wood needs to be replaced. And we know there was issues with kind of cleaning it as well. So, no, did I miss anything, Jeff?
Well, all the walkways would be upgraded, including all the retaining walls. But you covered it.
So once it's restored, I just want to throw this out there. Is this going to be something that's easier on the DPW to maintain, or is it going to add more work?
It certainly would be easier to maintain. We have been trying to repair boards and broken items for years and years. And it is to the point where it's deteriorating so bad that it's unsafe to walk on those walkways and the elevated platforms. So we've had those areas closed off. Also, the retaining walls that are there are made of busted concrete stacked. A lot of those walls are missing. Vandals have thrown pieces of them in the river. The treatments that we're looking at are above our original estimate because we're trying to go to those durable walkways, concrete, the PVC like we did down by at the west end of the Riverwalk, so that it is more maintenance friendly. It's really a beautiful park, especially in the fall with all the colors, but the shrubbery is just so overgrown. I mean, they've been growing there for 40 years, so we have a lot of issues with homeless people and vagrancy, and they camp out, and it's really unsafe. So we're hoping that when we refresh this, add some lighting, it becomes a very, very appealing park, especially from the south side, but then becomes a safe and enjoyable place for everybody day and evening.
Are we gonna have that stairway coming down, Jeff? I talked about a couple of years ago about it.
So we actually met with our DNR representative last week on site, and as long as that is an access point to the Riverwalk, then it'll be eligible to be replaced. Certainly won't be barrier free, but it'll be replaced with concrete. They do not fund amphitheaters, so we have to kind of carve that line real carefully and make sure that that doesn't appear to be a walkway or an entry point to the amphitheater. But yes, there is Bill mentioned it real briefly, but there's a fishing platform right down below the bridge that is heavily used. I see people there darn near every day during the year, and the stairways to it they're rotted. They've shifted. It's very unsafe, and the engineers have laid out a new pathway to that so that it actually has a barrier-free accessibility all the way up from the parking lot. And then kind of rebuilds that, so that'll be a huge improvement. And it's one of the ways that after our first application did not score high enough to get the grant, we spent a great amount of time looking for where we can improve our points. And so that was one element, because even though we've got a lot of accessibility items addressed in the grant application, that fishing platform wasn't ADA accessible, and because it's an element within the project, you don't get points for accessibility. So there's that type of thing. We've got plans to take some of the stormwater runoff from the parking lot and put that through rain gardens so that we pre-treat that before it goes into the river. We're hoping that that'll boost our point takes. So there's a number of those things that we're trying to increase our score. I did see over the weekend that the Orchard Beach State Park and the DNR is applying for the same funds that we are in the same cycle for that over $500,000 playground. So I'm hoping both of us get funded, but really hoping that this one does.
I really think the veterans deserve it.
Yeah.
They need it. Anybody else? Right now, take a motion to approve the resolution to apply for the Michigan Natural Resources.
We already have a motion.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to repeat it.
Okay.
I guess I was being wordy. Okay. Roll
Okay.
call.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. I have to take a minute because I've waited a long time to say these words, and I didn't think I'd actually be able to say them. I'm so happy. Consideration of awarding a construction contract for the Quincy and Cleveland Street improvements. The city has designated a publicly bid, the way this is worded, has designated a publicly bid the Quincy and Cleveland Street improvements along with utility upgrades. The project will consist of a water main replacement, sanitary sewer replacement, storm sewer improvements, and full street reconstruction. 2 bids were received as follows. Pollock Contracting, $978,410.50. Davis Construction, $1,104,195.75. The engineer's estimate is $969,000. The low bid exceeds the engineer's estimate, but is still within the project's budget. The city attorney has reviewed and approved the contract. At this time, council could take action to approve the contract with Halleck Construction in the amount of $978,410.50 and authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any discussion?
Jeff, are we comfortable with Halleck Contracting? What other jobs have they done recently?
We are very comfortable with Halleck. They've been doing work, their home base is Hart. They've been doing work in the city of Manistee for at least 20 years that I know of. They completed a project on the north side, Hastings? Yeah, 3rd Street in Hastings several years ago. They are the primary site contractor at the wastewater treatment plant expansion right now. They are also the contractor that is installing the 4-foot diameter conveyance pipeline on 7th Street and Ramsdell Street. And they'll be starting that back up in the next week or two. Last year they completed Jackson Van Buren, which is very similar to this, full water main replacement. I was actually anticipating a question like that. There's a lot of contractors, especially when you're in a low bid public environment, that once they get awarded, they immediately start looking for change orders and ways that they can increase their take. Halleck is actually the opposite. They work with us very closely and try to value engineer things with us as we go through each project. So very pleased that they're a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Heather, will you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of a resolution Third Life Brewing LLC, 254 River Street, on-premises tasting room permit. Third Life Brewery LLC is proposing to open a nano brewery in the Ironworks building at 254 River Street and is requesting a resolution from the City Council to support the application to the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, Liquor Control Commission. This application is for on-premises tasting room permit. At this time, council could take action to approve the resolution supporting the request from Third Life Brewing LLC for an on-premises tasting room permit. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion. We want to know all about it, so.
Yes.
Okay, I have a paper here that I wrote for this,
Okay.
so. All right, council members, first and foremost, thank you. I wish to thank you all for your time this evening. My name is Jameson Hanna, and I am the founder and president of Third Life Brewing. I stand before you tonight to ask for your support and approval for a resolution required by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to open an on-premises tasting room for a brewery in the Ironworks building. Breweries have shown an ability to help areas prosper as destinations, especially those with multiple breweries in condensed areas. For example, Ludington currently has 3. Third Life Brewing is positioned as an outdoor lifestyle brand dedicated to the preservation of our natural resources found around our region, as well as the growth of our city and local businesses. We will be contributing proceeds to organizations that focus on the preservation of our natural resources from sponsored tap handles. We will not have a kitchen. However, we will be offering incentives to patrons who bring in food from local non-franchised establishments. We wish to serve as a catalyst in the expansion and growth of the Peninsula District, expanding the footprint of social spaces in Manistee for our locals as well as the seasonal tourist population. Third Life will operate as a nano brewery producing 31 gallons per batch, focusing mainly on light beers. In addition to beer, we will also be producing wine, cider, gluten-free beer, and non-alcoholic beer. The taproom will be small and quaint, putting an emphasis on personability. We will be looking to hire at least 3 to 4 positions within our first year of operation, an assistant brewer and bartending positions, to name a few. I've been a resident in Manistee for 3 years, specifically in the Maxwell Town area. I've been brewing professionally for 10 years around the state of Michigan, having worked on small nano systems to full-blown production facilities. I plan on leveraging my relationships in the industry to bring further awareness to Manistee and our region through collaborations with breweries throughout the state of Michigan. While we are starting as a small operation, with my background and experience, combined with the growth potential the Ironworks building has, our growth potential is unlimited. Thank you for your time and for your support of this resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have enough room in there to put in a brewery?
Yep. So I took a delivery of equipment, part of the equipment last week. I was actually featured, Jeff did an article last week on the equipment delivery. So I'll be doing about 300 barrels a year. Right now I'm looking at about 5 fermenters. I have the brew system in there already and 2 fermenters, so I can get placement and ideas for how much room I actually have. And it actually turned out to be more room than expected. So.
I know I used to go in there years ago when Excello was there and after they put the restaurant in there.
Yep. So kind of a fun fact, off record, I guess, but Excello was actually a Troy-based company from Michigan. I'm from Troy, so I kind of thought that was a cool 360 kind of thing. So, random fun fact.
So are you going to be doing anything upstairs?
I do have access to the upstairs, the kind of catwalk space. So that's all within, a certain time frame. Starting small affords me the opportunity to grow organically and not. I'm funding this myself, so I have full control over where the money's being spent, how it's being spent, and how I'm growing the brand. So within the next 3 years, I could imagine or envision growing to that space upstairs and even potentially out into the warehouse as well. I've discussed with Ken.
So this might be a stupid question, but so this permit's different than a liquor license?
That's correct. So this is strictly just for a tasting premises for the MLCC. It's specific to breweries only. So like a Class C liquor license is something you would need for like a bar. A brewery is a separate permit.
What's your time frame to open? What do you hope for?
TTB right now, so that there's
this resolution, and then I've got permits from the TTB as well as the MLCC. TTB is currently at a 34-week lead time. I submitted my paperwork for that about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. MLCC could be anywhere from a month to 2 months. So I'm hoping May to June.
What TCB stand for?
TTB. I can't remember what the acronym stands for. It's the federal side.
Alcohol, tobacco, farm, kind of that whole deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the difference between a tasting room and a bar?
So with the tasting room, when I think of a bar, I think of a place like with liquor and where you go to, party and have fun. With the tasting room, the brewery side of things is a whole different culture. Michigan, we're known for being a big brewery state. We're not looking to party and have fun. For example, with my tasting room, what I'm looking at for the design, kind of atmosphere, it's just low-key zen. I'll have, I was in there today looking around and like bamboo shoots, just keep it low-key, more communal than anything. A place where people can come in, just relax and hang out, not, loud music blasting and pounding and, people doing shots and everything else. This is just simply, you come in and it's like going to like a wine tasting. When you go up to Traverse City Vineyards up there, things of that nature.
But with this permit, you're only allowed to serve beer.
Correct. Beer, wine, and cider.
And you're going to have non-alcoholic and gluten-free beer?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome.
Well, I, for one, can't wait.
Thank you, Mick.
All right. Heather, could you take the roll call?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Mayor Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Cheers.
Put down my t-shirt here.
Notices, communications, and announcements. A report from the police department and the fire department. A regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency, organization, or department. At this time, Chief Josh Glass will report on the activities of the City of Manistee Police Department and respond to any questions the council may have regarding their activities.
Good evening, members of council. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this year's 2021 annual report for the police department. This is our department photo. At our police department here, we saw a picture probably from the 80s, and this is a throwback or homage to that. I think Councilmember Grabowski, you were actually in that photo. So we chose this venue as to pay homage to history, department history. So just a quick snapshot of our organizational chart for those who don't know. Chief of Police, we have an administrative assistant. We have 2 patrol sergeants. 1 supervises 4 officers, 1 supervises 5, and our detective sergeant, she has a whole host of responsibilities, but she generally supervises our criminal investigations. 2021, we saw the addition of 2 new faces. January, we hired Tad Schmaling. He was a transfer for the Sheriff's Department. A few months later, we hired Josh Pomorski. Both officers have successfully completed a pretty robust field training officer program, and they're on their own, so to speak, patrolling. So here's our stats from last year, and because 2020 was kind of an anomaly with COVID, I've included the last 3 years. 2019 for us was a record year. It was very busy. And with 2020, like I said, was an anomaly. As you can see, in 2021, we took 400 approximately more calls for service. You see some reductions. Written complaints were reduced. That's an internal policy. In the past, we used to write written complaints for every citation we issued. We've changed that policy to get our officers out on the road and be more proactive. So that's why there's a reduction in written complaints. Citations is an increase from last year, but still down from 2019. A couple causes there. Staffing, a large part of our proactivity is devoted to blight enforcement. Our arrests are down a little bit from 2019, and our accidents are down from 2019 as well. Again, it's just some major file classes, major crimes, criminal sexual conduct. 2019, I was a detective then, was a record year with 33 sexual assault investigations. 2021, there's 24. Our aggravated assaults were down this year. Burglary was slightly down. Larceny was up just a tick, and then our MDOPs were up more significantly last year. Blight Enforcement, as you know, we have 8 districts in Manistee. We have an officer assigned to each district. Here's some of our statistics from last year. In 2021, we had our officers investigated 254 separate rubbish complaints. Now, what rubbish is basically junk and trash, tires, mattresses. Of those 254 rubbish complaints, we were able to get 238 resolutions. Junk vehicles, our officers investigated 126 in the city. We were able to get 121 resolutions to junk vehicles. And then structures, we investigated 147 blighted structures, and we were able to get resolution on 88 of them. As you can see, we have a little bit of work still there to do. Citations, in 2021, our officers issued 26 citations for blight. 18 of those citations were waived or voided due to compliance, and we had 8 court cases for litigation. Here's just a couple of our demolitions last year, before and after. This is 1018 High Street. This is one that we really essentially worked on for years. With the dedication of council, with funds, we were able to get that down finally, and have a blank canvas for construction. Another one, 530 Davis Street. The owner actually demoed this himself. As you can see, we've got some work still left on site to do, but this is kind of test of a matter of months. Officer Shands in that district working with this individual for months, getting the proper permits, keeping them on track, and moving in the right direction to get that house down. That's a house that was damaged by fire, uninsured. It's been there for a few years. We were able to get that down as well. So every year we look at all of our services for the police department, and we audit them to see how we can provide those services in a more efficient manner, especially with blight. This year, working with then acting city manager Ed Bradford at the time, we worked with Spicer to develop a GIS mapping software system, a layered system. And what this does is it allows us to track blight, but more importantly, it gives us a visual on a map. At a snapshot, you can look and see what type of blight we have and what type of houses those are. So for example, by looking at a map, I can tell if this is a long-term rental, short-term rental, owner-occupied, owner-unoccupied, and I can tell what type of blight issue we have at that residence. In addition to that, there are a number of drop-down boxes that allow us to track the progress or the enforcement of blight in that particular case. And so this is something we looked at last year and say, how do we improve our services? And this is a step in that direction. And we are now teaching our officers this for this blight season, so to speak. Another improvement on blight, we would say, is we have regular meetings with the city manager and the city attorney. Make sure that we go over all the cases that are in litigation, so we're all on the same page, and so information is shared. So again, every year looking at how we're providing service and how we can do it better. Local revenue sharing, we are very fortunate to have 2 projects funded. One was body-worn cameras. And again, in this profession, that's kind of the expectation. Body-worn cameras allow us to provide critical evidence for prosecutors, but they also allow us to review and supervise how we're interacting with the public. So it's a great tool, and again, for our profession, it's becoming the expectation. So we're very fortunate to be able to get that funded by revenue sharing, very thankful. And then the second picture there, our model officer is modeling our gear, the hat, the gloves, and the patrol jacket, which we actually just got in. So we were very fortunate to secure that funding from revenue sharing. So again, you can see the clear picture, you can see the value here. This is something in addition to our patrol cars that allow us to evaluate what we're doing in the field. So we're very fortunate to have that funding.
Did you stage that, or was that an actual incident?
No, that's not staged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the guy who was stealing all the pipe? Or?
No, I was very careful to pick respected privacy and was out of litigation. So that's just a snapshot, see how clear it is, what it looks like when officers run, those types of things. And so in 2021, One of our department objectives and part of my vision was to expand and create a sustainable training program, something that builds on our training program, that gives our officers really the skills to be successful no matter what problems they face. And so we're very fortunate to have an emergency vehicle operation instructor. What is that? Well, it's someone that teaches our officers how to operate emergency vehicles. It's the only instructor that we have in the county, and West Shore has utilized him to teach, so we're very happy to have that in-house, and that can be part of our annual training. I know our risk management people are very happy about that. So, and that's Officer Hayner. He's done a great job. It allows us, again, we're talking about giving our officers the skills and putting them in a position to succeed. Firearms instructors, last year Sergeant Bruce was our firearms instructor. He's since retired. Sergeant Van Sickle, this year we were able to send him to firearms instructor school for pistol and rifle. So we've kind of expanded our training program as far as rifles and pistols in the range. So he's doing a great job, but again, it's just setting up more of a sustainable training model. Defensive tactics, I just talked about, I'm talking about again, Officer Hayner is our defensive tactics and taser instructor, which we do in this very room, part of our annual training. Again, he's an in-house instructor, so we don't have to send people away for that type of training. We can house that, and we can control what we teach our officers as it changes with case law and expectations. Something new we added, Detective Sergeant Kirsten Goodspeed is our fair and impartial policing instructor, and that's anti-bias policing. That's an 8-hour course and a hot topic in our profession. We're very happy to send her and Officer Fran Koviak to instructor school, so that's part of our annual training curriculum and required by accreditation. So something new, something that's an absolute must. In addition, Detective Sergeant Goodspeed is our de-escalation training. Again, something new for our department, but she's our instructor, so now we have her in-house, and that can be part of our annual in-house training. This year we were fortunate to have a response to active shooter training, utilize our rifles. The high school was gracious enough to allow us to actually train in their school. In years past, we used the Wellston Elementary, which is great. It's a great facility, but it's nice to use a facility that we might, unfortunately, hopefully don't have a real world scenario in. So our officers are able to actually train in that environment. And this is something that's new this year as well. It's an online training platform, so our officers can train while on shift. And it's a little more, I shouldn't say exciting, but Police One provides state accredited training courses. So MCOs, which is our licensing board, has approved this training material. So that we've noticed a high quality of this training. We can provide that training in-house to our officers throughout their shifts. So it's really given us a tool in our toolbox to expand our training while they're on shift. One of our largest endeavors, November 4th, we signed up and registered for our accreditation process. And for those who don't know, our accreditation process is simply put this: we develop policies and procedures that are consistent with best practices. Everything we do, from how we put our vest on to how we check our cars, how we search, how we arrest people, is consistent with best practices in the profession, is the gold standard. And when we're ready, we have a third-party accreditation body come in, and we have to prove to them that we follow all these standards. If we can accomplish that, we're accredited. So it's the gold standard in the profession. And again, it's our way, our commitment to the community, saying we want to be more efficient and provide the best services possible. The other driving factor is we think this is going to be mandatory at some point. So we just assume get ahead of it and plan, schedule, budget for it versus have someone tell us next year you have to be accredited. So it's a matter of reading the horizon and, again, putting our people in a position to be successful. In the Department of Cooperation, it kind of goes without saying, but our police, fire, and DPW work really well together. We have major incidents, and sometimes, when I first got the job, I didn't realize how active Jeff McCula is when we had incidents that involved the river channel, but they're always right there. And I use this slide to just kind of illustrate this. This was a grass fire that we had behind the rental storage facility, which would be behind Authentic 231. And what you see here is you see fire trucks, DPW, police, rapid response, all working together to accomplish this. We were fortunate to have one of our partner law enforcement agencies have a drone on site and was able to provide drone footage, and we were able to give that to the incident commander if they needed to utilize that to see on top of the ridge to see what the issues were. But again, you had a fire department there, you had the police there, you had DPW members there getting shovels and rakes, whatever is needed to all chip in, work together to get this thing put out. So again, it's just one example of that, and it's great footage from the drone. We have a Manistee County dive team comprised of members from law enforcement agencies in Manistee County. Currently, we have 3 members on that team, which is, I think, close to the majority. So we're proud to have that, proud to be part of that. Again, these interdepartment relationships. And then community involvement. And what I use here to illustrate community involvement is, even though we had some COVID restrictions, we were still able to participate in the Shop with a Hometown Hero. And this is police and fire, sponsored by Meyer, shopping, being able to bring a little bit of light into families' lives during the holidays. So again, you can see us masked up here, but we were really fortunate and thankful to still be able to do this. It looked a little different this year. We weren't able to shop with the kids in Meyer, but we're very thankful to still be able to do this. It's just part of our community outreach. Again, bring a little warmth around the holidays. Again, partnership here with a radio station out of Ludington. This is just a turkey ham giveaway. We're fortunate to reach out to our community and again, provide something to them around the holidays. So we take this pretty seriously. We have a school liaison program. And so what it is we have an officer assigned to every school in the city. And it's not a resource officer, it's a liaison, so that we have a bridge between the police department and the schools. Now with COVID restrictions, we had to pull them back a little bit. But we were still able early on to have Officer Pomorski, doesn't have a lot of time on the job there, reading to one of our Jefferson classrooms. And again, this is something unprompted, but they understand the value of positive interactions with law enforcement and our children. So again, just one example of the liaison program. Again, this is police and fire serving lunch at the holidays at Casman. Outreach, building relationships with our local schools. Manistee County CAC, which is actually Lakeview, Lakeshore CAC, police and fire donating a printer to the CAC, which moved from where it was to where it is now. Again, valuing our partnerships. Collaboration. One of the things that I really value in this county, and it's not the same everywhere, but this county, is our ability to work together in major incidents, whether police, fire, Coast Guard, whatever it might be. I think that is definitely a strength in this county. And I use this picture just to illustrate that. This is a picture, a great picture at Sleigh Bell. You have Director Madako from the Tribal Police Department, Chief Booth from Coast Guard, myself, Chief Cameron, and Sheriff Gutowski. And again, this is just illustrate the collaboration with all the departments. And policing a small town, we pride ourselves in answering whatever call you need the city police to answer. That includes sometimes taking porcupine off of the pier. So again, this Officer Halid, anything that's needed, we're willing to do. So with that, I just want to say, I want to thank council for your continued support. And if you have any questions, you know.
I got one, Josh. Great report, by the way, but how many patrol rifles do you have?
3.
How many do you need?
1 per officer. So
Is
that's where I want to get to.
You're budgeting for this year?
That's part of our budgeting
We'll
process.
see that in the budget? Okay.
Part of the process. Yes, sir.
On your accreditation, what's your timeline? When do you think would be a reasonable goal to set for accreditation?
Well, we're in a self-assessment phase, and what does that mean? It means the first year is you basically dive in the deepest corners of your organization and figure out what you need to get on par. So we would like to have a mock assessment, being assessors come in for a trial run to evaluate us. You know, Kirsten Goodspeed's our accreditation manager. She might tell you a different timeline, but I'd like to be pretty close this summer. Usually, at max, it's a 3-year process. Some departments can do it in a year and a half. This is a big undertaking for a department our size, but we're taking a unique approach to this. Instead of putting it on one person, we're putting it on a team of 5. So my timeline would be summer, fall to get our mock assessment, and then our real assessment is a few months following that. And hopefully, I'll be in front of you saying that we're accredited. So again, I could go on and on about the accreditation process and what it means, what it means to our services, but that's not what I'm here for, So we're looking at summer and fall is what I'd like to be at.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be the one to ask this. Do you get training yearly for special needs people?
We have training for autism and emotionally impaired people. That's part of that online training. That's something we just started this year. We are able to provide that now. Before that, we had someone come up from the Autism Alliance organization, but we couldn't get that every year. That's why this online platform is so important, because those are state accredited training we can give our officers on shifts. So it allows us to stay that to annual training.
Okay.
So.
Josh, I like your going to the schools, because I did that for a long time. I did lunch buddies and I did reading. It really improves the kids' contact with the police.
It does. And again, I think I've said this example before, but Doug Van Sickle last year, he showed up the first year liaison program, and when you show up in the police, the kids go, ooh, who's in trouble? By the end of the year, it was Officer Dougie high-fiving. So we really value that, and I want to expand that COVID allowing what we're doing in the schools.
I agree with that. It really is important. Even having them come read stories in the classroom, that kind of thing, it really sets a different tone. It's a partnership as opposed to a, what's going on? What's up here? So I hope we can keep that going too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it's time for Chief Mark Cameron to come forward.
Unfortunately, Chief Glass used up all your time, so.
I'm going to make sure we see that
We'll see you next year, Mark?
Yeah, I think we'll be next year. I can't believe we're already around to this year from last year. It seems like yesterday. Thanks for having us up here. This is our annual report for the city fire. Got our guys here, John, Brent, Chris, Heath, Brandon, John, Matt, and myself. Those are our full-time firefighters. We have Chris Frankowiak, Jason Hallian, Brian Cook, and Steve, who are our police cross-trained. They have fire certification. We're working closer in training with them more and more as the months go on here. So for our statistics, we're up a little bit, just shy of 30 calls, 102 calls for this year's incidents, compared down to the 1273. Auto aid's been down a little bit. We only had a couple fires. When I say auto aid, that usually refers to a fire that happened in the city that we're automatically mutual aided with either Filer Township or with Manistee Township. And then we went outside the city to assist them 5 different times. Mutual aid given in this year was up a little bit. A lot of that's due to our EMS call volume. So those are requests by other agencies outside. Mutual aid received, that's us requesting by radio for them to come into the city. So kind of gives a little bit of breakdown of where we were for the past 2 years, pretty even on most of the levels with the exception of the mutual aid request or given on the 1.7. This is a snapshot of our average response time. In the city, for the most part, we see about a 3 to 4 minute response. This here shows a little bit longer due to that increased number in longer response times calls outside. So pretty good statistics as far as numbers and responses. Also, the volume is up a little bit from last year at 72. Revenue sharing grants, we were fortunate to be awarded both grants for last year. The first was a matching grant that we requested. It's for a Lucas CPR device. It's an automated battery operated device. We use that in every cardiac arrest. It frees up the hands of a paramedic on scene, allows them to do advanced care, whether it's starting IVs, advanced airways, running the monitor, or drugs. So it really helps out. That piece gets put onto a person and it's utilized throughout the entire scene. We can transport and utilize it right up until we're into the ER. Cycle 2 was our rope rescue equipment. It replaced our confined space gear that was getting outdated. We currently just received it about a week ago, and so we're getting things put together with it, and we're going to be doing some training on it, then getting it put into service. Moving into our turnout gear. Now this is a 2020 LRSB grant, but with things and timelines the way they were delayed so long with COVID. We just received our gear. It was about June of 21. So this is just a quick snapshot of the new turnout gear that we received. This year we were fortunate enough, or I should say last year, at the end of the year, to receive a FEMA grant for 14 self-contained breathing apparatus. This is a photo here of the one that the model we're picking up. We have 14 of those. Right now we're still waiting for those to come in, just like the turnout gear, things have been delayed. We're waiting on the carbon fiber bottles to be produced. There's only one or two manufacturers out there that create those, so everything else is in place. We're just waiting on those lighter weight bottles. That is supposed to be coming in June, is what is the projected date of those. Many of you were there for our push-in ceremony. We received a new ambulance. We were excited about that. We had our on-duty crew. We had some off-duty guys come in, as well as retirees, as well as a few city council members and general people of the public. It's kind of a neat tradition. Back in the day, they would push the wagons back into the station, so we kind of replicated that with pushing the truck back in, and that was its first day of service. To the right was a neat photo. The guys were out doing some hydrant pumping last fall and had a nice snapshot of the side of the truck there. As far as training, we have a lot of training that we conduct throughout the year. Currently, 7 of our 8 guys are paramedics. We have continuing education credits that we renew every 3 years to maintain our licensure. Classes that are listed just below that is advanced cardiac life support, pediatric advanced life support, pre-hospital trauma life support, and basic life support as far as our CPR and recertifications. NRP is a neonatal resuscitation program. We started doing that a few years back. We're the only fire station in Northwest Michigan that renews that every 2 years, and it's for newborn infants. And being that we have a little longer transport times, potentially to Ludington, Cadillac, or Traverse City in this case, it's a good certification to have. We also follow up with that with Skills Day. Below on the lower picture is one of our Skills Day. It just keeps us refreshed up on those calls that are low frequency and high acuity, whether it's intubation or specialized care that we need to give. It just keeps our skills sharp. Above is Chris Jeffries with Matt. They're doing a hose advancement training, utilizing different body maneuvers or mechanics to aid in less fatigue and moving the hose forward. They also conducted throughout the year pump operations. We did different scenarios such as drafting. Normally in the city we're hooked up to a hydrant. In some of those cases where we've done drafting to try and work as we potentially have the possibility to with partners out in the townships. We also conducted at the beginning of the year ice rescue, and then the VEIS is a operation where we do rescues. We ventilate, enter, isolate, and search a room. So we'll set a ladder outside, enter through a window, quickly get to the door in the bedroom, close it, search the room, and then get back out, just to have the most opportunity to rescue a person in a fire situation that's right adjacent to the origin of the fire or the room that has a lot of fire activity. And we look for the room that has the most chances for survivability in that case. Just a tactic that we train on. We had hosted a class this year for mental health awareness and this covers across the board for different disciplines. But a chief from down by Muskegon came up, Chief Stiles came up to just deliver this program. It was a really, really good program. It was through a grant that was in collaboration through Grand Traverse County and Blair Fire Department. Kind of a neat call that took place. We had a down wire, and this is a lot of fire to be burning for just green grass. So it involved a gas line that was under the ground. It actually melted the tracer wire, which caused a poly line to break, and it was feeding gas to the surface. So it was a good recognition of our guys out on the shift that, you know, you don't just go in to spray water, you see there's a down line. You had multiple sources there, so it was kind of just an off-the-wall call. You don't run into traditional calls every day, so it was. We had some professional development. Brent Haskin, he's our fire inspector. He's gone off to 2 different classes. One was the NFPA Plans Examiner and the Inspectors Conference. Both of these conferences gave him CEs towards that certification, for his inspector certification. Matt Witkowski, early June, I believe it was June 4th, he came on board with us. This is a picture of his wife Gail and his kids doing a pinning on his first day of service. Family's kind of, I push that's a big thing in the firehouse, and so I kind of include them to come in, and it's kind of like a new tradition of having them pin his badge and getting them involved. Brandon Nelson, last fall, he completed the paramedic program. After completing the paramedic program, it's a national registry. He does a national registry test and then follows up with a practical exam. After that, he goes through an FTO program that's done in the station. We follow up with that with a little testing done by our med control director, Dr. Robinson, out at the hospital, and he kind of gives a once over and tests him on a few different scenarios, and then that gives him the ability to practice freely as a freestanding paramedic. So Brandon currently today is one of the crew guys. He can go out and work on his own as a paramedic, so it's a great accomplishment. Our young guy right now is in school to become a paramedic. He should be done. He's had a long process going through this. It's about a 16 to 18 month program. He's currently in it. He'll be done around October of this year. And so he's doing well in it. He's coming back every time and showing us the new things that he's picked up. John has had a very busy year. Just prior to this, he had we'll see in the next slide. We had him and his wife had a newborn coming along. So we had a gender reveal. They came to us and asked, would you like to do something to help us with this reveal? So we put some dye in our fire truck tank, and he came out, and they, unbeknownst to them, they sprayed, and they saw that they're having a little boy, so along with their daughter Nayli. So it was a neat experience, and other firemen from the station already came out, as well as their family. And 4 months later, we welcomed Little Ridge to the city fire family. So. Community outreach, as Josh has said earlier, we work very well with police and other entities out there. We also had the Casman dinner that we put on, assisted with. We had an MCC big truck day where we let the kids check out our stuff, answered any questions, let them check out all the equipment, and then sprayed a little water. And then had the Shop with a Hero as well, in conjunction with the CDPD and the Sheriff's Department. A neat event that took place had Alyssa DeWitt. She was awarded the Citizen Life Saving Award by Josh and myself, and also with the Great Lakes Safety Consortium gentleman that was in the middle. She, as many of you probably remember, she went out on the pier, kind of risked herself, and at that time I believe she was pregnant, and really did a great job rescuing kids from rough surf at First Street Beach. So it's been a very busy year, and at this time I can take any questions that you might have.
I'd like to thank you and your men, because they had to come to my house and save my wife and get her out to the hospital because she took the wrong medicine. And so that really saved her. Thanks a lot.
That's what we're there for. Thank you.
It's a good report, Mark. Thank you very much. I like it.
Is there an accreditation for fire departments like there is for the police?
Not quite the same. I should have mentioned a little bit too. Just like Josh has his Police One, we have the same scenario or same program. It's called Fire Rescue One. Okay. Same thing, online program that goes along with our in-house training. So we'll conduct the in-house needs, such as it may be blood. We may do, for the medical side, we may do bloodborne pathogens, airborne pathogens. We do those type of classes on shift, and then we utilize our all-hands days for larger training skills such as the hose. And this year we worked a little bit with a house that was on 5th Street that we were able to acquire, which was a blessing. So.
I want to thank you for the thorough report that you gave, and I also want to thank Chief Glass for the thorough report that he gave. We always learn something, and I'm always kind of amazed at how much training goes in, and you're still doing your regular job at the same time. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. For citizens' comment, this is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of the city involvement. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Do we have anybody that would like to come forward? Hearing none, I'll move on to officials and staff. Mr. Gamble.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as Chief Glass mentioned, we are starting the budget process internally. Finance Director Ed Bradford kicked him off today, so we'll be doing that and getting that all ready to bring it before council around late March, early April. And we had a council request I want to follow up with. I think Council Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan requested we have a discussion on blight. We'll put that in May. City Attorney is not available in April, so we'll have that discussion in May. And then I just wanted to introduce Katie Mells here, our new zoning administrator. So didn't mean to put her on the spot, but I wanted to introduce council. She's going to be doing what Zach was doing, so appreciate her. Looking forward to working with her. Thank you.
City Attorney.
Nothing, Your Honor, thanks.
Clerk.
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Bradford.
Nothing, Madam, thank you.
City Engineer.
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
EPW Director.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Chief Glass.
I don't have anything, Your Honor, thank you.
You sure? Okay. Fire Chief Cameron.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Did I get everybody out there? Mr. Bachman.
Good, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Lundberg.
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Good to hear. Pike.
I'm good.
Mr. Kowalski.
You know I'm gonna say something.
Of course.
Is there any way, George, that we can get those boards taken off in front of Rosemary's? I mean, everybody's commenting now about the orange boards and you know, in front of the doors. Why can't they just block up the windows and take the boards out of there because it looks crazy?
The windows are, pursuant to the court's order, are required to be replaced no later than May 15th.
Yeah.
We've met and talked about that property or those properties and discussed what our next course of action would be if that doesn't take place. So we're waiting on that. There was a requirement in the court order to place a covering over the boards that would have been more aesthetically pleasing, and that never has happened. We just haven't done anything with that as yet.
They put on those wreaths for Christmas, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
over.
But we're prepared. Hopefully by May 15th, windows will be in.
Good.
That's what the requirement is, at least.
Thank you.
Mr. Szymanski.
As part of the budget, are you discussing the new marketing plan that we received last year with the new logos and working with directional signs?
One of the discussions for ARPA funds was entrance signs. As far as directional signs, I think we weren't anticipating spending money on that, but that's something we can look into. Was there a specific area or?
Well, just our downtown area, the directional signs, and again, with the historic thing going down to the beach, if we were going to be updating it, might not be a bad idea to put at least one directional sign showing that that's also part of the Douglas Park area. That's it.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. McCullough. When do you think construction on Cleveland and Quincy Street will commence?
So the contract was written for construction to begin probably in late April, May. However, the lead time on specifically ductile iron pipe, all metal stuff, PVC, is in the 3 to 4 month range at best. So we heard this in the pre-bid meeting. So we extended out the completion date to September. And then we had a meeting with the contractor last week. And the best case scenario is if they receive the pipe materials in the June, July timeframe, it still allows them to install all the piping, reconstruct the road, and get the pavement completed in early November. So what we are doing is setting kind of a trigger date that if the materials don't come by a certain date, we won't let them start in the fall, and we'll carry that into spring.
Okay, let's hope those materials come.
What about Ramsdale Street?
Ramsdale Street, the same contractor. So when we met with her last week, she said that they would be remobilizing probably the last week of this month. The issue there is when they do their dewatering system, they have to make sure it doesn't freeze during the night, so they're going to let it warm up a little bit. But we're working on doing notifications to the first 2 blocks of 7th Street, and they expect to get rolling pretty quick. We just saw this evening, we got an email that the contractor for the marina dock replacements expects to begin work, was it the last week of the month? Monday? Next Monday? Yes. Next Monday. So construction's, I mean, it was winter 2 days ago. Now it's 40 degrees and everything's starting to happen again, so.
Oh, I do have one. Do you still plan on running the Ren water notice?
So that's a great question. We just had a conversation on that Monday. The public needs to understand that just because the surface temps are warming up, sun shining, snow is melting, there's still a lot of frost in the ground, and it's the frost in the ground that makes a lot of those pipes susceptible. So ideally, we would be able to shut that down now because it times out really well with a billing cycle, but we're probably at least 2 to 3 weeks out on that yet before it will be safe.
Getting back to Quincy, will you let me know when somebody's actually working on there? I'd say, are you going to send out an email? Let us all know. I want to take pictures. I want to be told when you first start. It's really important to me. So I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
I also want to thank you for the action that you took over the weekend to unclog that drain that was on 4th Street. I think it was 4th Street.
Yeah, 4th Street.
For the Pratts. Totally appreciate that. I'm glad that you guys were able to get out there before Monday, since I'd already been suffering for almost a week.
So I want council to understand that we did nothing different in that scenario than we always do. I mean, we take those type of issues very seriously. Their issue started the previous Sunday. We checked it that day. They had a contractor that checked it on Monday. The contractor said, I don't think I can fix this, probably is a city issue. They got another contractor on Wednesday. That contractor found some issues, worked, got through those, worked again on Friday. So there was constant communication between the homeowners, my staff, and their contractor. I couldn't commit when council started forwarding those emails to me because the contractor was in his daughter's sing or play or something Friday night, and he had to check to make sure he was available the next morning. And the equipment he was using is highly susceptible, just like some of our stuff, to freezing. And so if you think back, it was 12 degrees, 15 degrees. And so After he got back home, he recontacted Brandon Prince and said, let's just give it a shot in the morning. They worked for 4 or 5 hours and cooperatively provided the additional relief. They were able to use their utilities in full function Friday night, but they were still, understandably, still pretty upset. And we actually are going back with the contractor to do some follow-up and make sure that we can try to prevent some of the stuff that they found. Tomorrow morning, we're meeting them again, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so I'm getting all these, hey, thanks for taking care of that. And then we got another call Sunday from the house across the street, but a completely different sewer line. And we were able to resolve that within a couple hours, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.